we're talking chips and we're talking AMD and Intel and China. So I got on CNBC to break this down. And, it's interesting. I think the news reports, the FT got a little ahead of itself. The headline said government, but the reality is it's defense. Okay. And defense is a large part of government, but it's not talking about universities. It's not talking about critical infrastructure like telco. That's the one thing. And there's a waiver that says you can go for 50%. This is the rough translation, non-compliant chip makers for defense. So, I mean, it's like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. And this is just a long line of kind of tit for tat between the US and China. 10 years ago, we had IBM and Cisco banned from critical infrastructure. The US banned Huawei and ZTE and a bunch of camera related properties. I think there were 75 Chinese companies on the do not buy list. Then you had Micron that was punished. And then here we are with AMD and Intel. So who's going to, you might be asking, well, who the heck could fill the gap there? Well, companies like Phytium, they're ARM-based, Longzun, MIPS, and I think they have RISC-V. Then you have High Silicon, which is by Huawei, which is ARM and RISC-V. And then finally, you have a JV, Zhaojin, which is x86 out there. There we have it.
Yeah, so I mean, look, there's more to this story, Pat. I mean, China's not banning everything. It kind of runs across sometimes that way. You see a headline, and we know that the decisions that have been made in the U.S. and in the West to try to create friction and try to create a challenge for China to keep up with global technology leadership. It's a decision I've said many times on the show, made out of three main tenets, right? National security, supply chain resiliency, and global technology leadership. AI is now the most coveted competency in the world. And of course, building advanced silicon and giving access to the most advanced design, and then being able to deliver these fabricated chips to China gives them a chance to catch up. And we know that Xi Jinping and the leadership of the CCCP will spend any amount, Pat, to get access. And they're building and they're seeing success. And, whether it's been marginal successes with the Huawei and the Harmony OS and being able to, get less Apple, that's not necessarily the only thing. But there's a big focus in the China to derail the U.S.'s strength. And of course, you're seeing them in limited capacity, being able to build lower nanometer nodes without EUV. And they haven't quite gotten down to, they're not nowhere near where the West is with 3 nanometer. And so it's going to take some time. Having said all that, Pat, I mean, look, I look at this as ping pong, less about what the new specific rules are, but there's a ping pong here. I mean, why Micron? Well, it's just kind of interesting. I said Micron because memory was something that probably China was okay if Micron got cut off and didn't need. Why have we seen crackdowns on the most advanced NVIDIA chips? Because it's really obvious why we don't want to provide that capability and technology to China. What's the intent of crackdown AMD and Intel? Well, I mean, look, these companies have legitimate multi-double-digit percentage revenue coming into China. This hurts. It stings. And although it's not every SKU and every part, the impact of the West knowing that China might cut it off, when we have so much supply going in and so much revenue and our company's strength is so dependent on China, it creates consternation. It creates chaos, conflict, and uncertainty, which again is the specialty of China, is trying to keep our markets a little bit unstable whenever possible. But be very clear, this is all a traditional global trade war that is going on. And now we have a new kingmaker in AI, and everybody wants to be the king. So China's finding its own path. It's going to do its best to find its own way. It's going to continue to find ways to create chaos for our companies, the US-based companies. I'm looking at this as just one little microaggression of many more to come. Won't be settled anytime soon, Pat. But hey, at least Intel has Gaudi 2.